Wow. Well, all the things you said, I don't know how that could hardly but answer almost all the questions you might have.
Then let the cruise begin.
Well, what I've been thinking about for some time before I got here, and to set up this question, is that when I got out of college, I took off, and I had a marriage and a divorce at a young age and was sort of propelled out there and was in a depressed state. Took off and to distract myself, got out there and started experiencing life in different ways. And actually at that time I believed in karma and had a whole different view. And I said, hey, if it's my time to go, take me out of here. I mean, I kind of thought this was the trash can in a way. But then as I started to experience life and see things and understand, and I was out there for 10 years, and I reached a point where I came in sync. I didn't know about Abraham at the time, but came in sync with those ideas and thoughts. And I thought, wow, we're here to live our dreams. That's what it's all about. So when I got through with that, I went back to school, got my journalism degree, took off and worked in a newspaper. And I got hired by the Denver Post, and when I was there, it was as a stringer, which means you're kind of a freelancer out there, and I was in the Colorado Springs Bureau. And so as I'm working, and after 4 months of writing lots of stories and learning a lot in the situation, I wanted to be a part of the staff and wasn't. And I was totally frustrated with that and really angry, and got to that point where I said, that I've heard you say, I'm not going to take this anymore. And I'd filed a story one morning, and I fell asleep, and the phone rang in the afternoon. I had applied to other newspapers, and I answered the phone kind of half awake, and it was the managing editor of another daily newspaper, and he said, I saw, a few days ago you had 2 stories on the front page of the state section. I like the stories. I've talked to you. We need someone here. You've got a job if you want it. Do you want the job? And here I am. I go, yeah, I'll take it. And he said, when can you be here? I said, be there in 3 weeks. And so that happened from a very frustrated, as I was falling asleep, frustrated and sort of an overwhelmed state. I'm at this newspaper for a year, and I'm sitting in the newsroom, a little less than a year, and I'm thinking, I need something different. This is, and it's sort of not as extreme as that state, but
Please
still.
Tell us that you then took another nap.
No. Actually, the phone rang. I'm in the newsroom. I answered the phone, and it's this University of Missouri journalism professor I'd had, and he said, I see this job. I'm looking at this job here, and I thought of you right away because you've traveled a lot. You speak some French and Spanish, and I just thought of you. And he said, it's a job putting out a newspaper on a cruise ship. And I go, you got to be kidding. And he goes, no. He says, you want the number? I said, yeah, give it to me. So I called him right away. They flew me out that weekend, and 3 weeks later I was flying to Rio de Janeiro to get on a cruise ship to put out the newspaper. But once again, that state I felt was very... I wouldn't call it a positive state that I was in. So what's the connection? And from what I see now, and I'm sure that's happened to other people too, when all of a sudden a reality formed that they wanted, but they were not, the last thing I was feeling was not that powerful. Or it was
well,
powerful,
you are the one exception in all of the universe to the law of attraction. Well, what you're describing is something that a lot of people are wondering about. You're describing your then inability to understand what your current state of vibrational offering was. Because these things are always true. What you're thinking and feeling and what's manifesting is always a vibrational match. Mm-hmm. But when you think about it, when you stand in any point in time, there are 2 components to your vibrational offering that are dominant factors. There's the vibration of your desire that has been formulating through all of the experience that you've been living. So each time that you were working on that early newspaper and you were not being understood or you were not being appreciated or you were being guided stronger than you wanted to be guided, you weren't being allowed the freedom that you wanted, you weren't finding the stories that you wanted, or you weren't being given the opportunities that you wanted. In each of those experiences, rockets of desire were shooting out ahead of you that were literally pre-paving your future experience. You heard us say earlier that your desires are being held in a sort of vibrational escrow. So everything that you're experiencing is causing you to launch clarifying desires. And source energy is lining up circumstances and experiences for you for any point in time that then you release your resistance enough to begin to come into vibrational alignment with what you've lined up out there for yourself. When we give the analogy of the radio tower and how you have to have your tuner set to receive what the radio tower is broadcasting, in this analogy, you've launched your own radio tower. In fact, you continue to launch it. It's out there offering a strong vibration. So it would be accurate to say, and maybe this is the easiest way for you to hear this, that when you are offering vibrations of desire, and you've been doing it consistently, and you're working on something. In this case, it was something that was your occupation, so you were putting a lot of your life experience energy toward it. So that vibration of desire was a very dominant player in your field. In other words, certainly you were looking at where you were complaining about what is, but your work environment, here is the easiest way for us to say it, and the easiest way for you to hear it. Your conditions were causing you to launch more desire rockets than you were beating the drum of this is how it is rockets. So the balance of your desire. Sometimes we say when you really, 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 really want something, it doesn't matter a whole lot what you believe about it, because when you really, really want it, what you want is getting more airtime. So we're talking about the balance of, were you doing more thinking about what you want? Were you launching more rockets about what you want? Or were you complaining more about where you are? Also, the conditions that you were living were not so awful that you were complaining, and you're not a complainer by nature. What you're saying is, I don't think that I felt the vibrational ecstasy that equaled the good things that were coming to me. And we say, you felt exactly the vibrational alignment with what came to you, otherwise it could not have come to you. And it's a very good thing to stop and reflect on anything that's ever happened in any of your experiences that worked out the way you want it, because what you're really reaching for is a vibrational essence that felt like that. You're not looking for the specific talking points or the specific manifestation points. What you're really wanting to say is, I remember when such and such happened and it felt this way. And as you sort of regurgitate or reconstitute or reactivate the vibration of how something felt, then you put yourself in that place of allowing again. Another thing we want to say, and this is a very good place to start about all of these vibrations, is that when you give your attention to something, you activate a vibration within yourself about it. And so it's logical that the more you give your attention to it, the more you would activate that vibration. Until eventually you activate a vibration that becomes so dominant that you could call it a belief. Now, what you're saying to us here today is, well, I activated a vibration that was clearly dominant enough that the universe responded to it, but I was not ready to call it a belief. I didn't know that I was believing it. I actually thought that I was believing more in my frustration than I was in my dream. And we say, don't get too complicated don't try too hard to think your way through this. Instead, begin to feel your way through this. And so, if we had been interacting with you in somewhere along the way within that, we would have been offering you processes like, wouldn't it be nice if, where you just softly say, wouldn't it be nice if there was some newspaper out there that had a glorious distribution that was reading some of what I'm writing and felt good about what I'm doing, that would want me to come. But there was another part to that. You'd already been working in that kind of environment. You'd already been launching rockets of desire about wanting more freedom, about wanting more creative license, about wanting to be more in charge of what you were doing. In other words, everything that you were living was giving components to the universe about what you wanted, far beyond your ability to even verbalize it. This happens to all of you all of the time. Some of you have lined up something so magnificent that is waiting for you there, but it is different than you think it is, because you are, in some ways, sort of locked in to the describing of it in the only way that you know how to describe it. So sometimes what the universe brings to you feels like a surprise to you, even though vibrationally it's exactly what you've been asking for. So knowing what you now know, as the call came, what was your response to the first phone call that you got when you woke up from your nap? As you sort of came back into consciousness and heard what you were hearing, what was the feeling that was moving through you as you heard it?
It was great. I go, wow, this is just what It was amazing to me at the time, but it makes more sense.
So those feelings were a vibrational match. In other words, what you felt when you heard those words, a large part of that vibration was within you, otherwise that could not have come to you, you see. So, clear enough?
Yes.
You are now ready to agree with us that you are not the exception to the law? Very good. Yes. Enough?
Thank you.
Yes. Esther says this cruise ship gives a new meaning to swooning.